You are listening to Mining Stock Education.
Welcome to Mining Stock Education. My name is Brian Lenny. Today with me, I have Mathias Forss, founder, president, and executive chair of GeoPool. Today, we will be having a conversation solely focused on the Nordic nations, Norway, Sweden, and Finland, covering their geological potential, the cost of exploration and development, the variation in politics, infrastructure, and attitude towards mining. There's quite a bit to cover. Mathias, thank you for coming on the show. Let's start with your background and what GeoPool is.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. Yeah, so by education, I'm a geologist. Finished up my university degree in early 2003. Basically, I set up my private owned company, and with then delayed a bit my university studies, but I got my master's in 2006, and then GeoPool was founded in 2007. Also got an executive MBA, and as mentioned, I'm currently the president and executive chair at GeoPool, and Thomas Levine came in back. He was actually working for us back in 2008 and 2009. Went to a junior company and came back last year. And since January now, he's our CEO in Finland, Sweden, and Norway. GeoPool as a company, we are a private consulting company or service provider. We've been organically growing with Jens and Robert in the beginning, and now we have operations both in Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And we also have companies registered in Canada, Slovakia, to cover the Eastern European market. And our services is focusing on the mineral exploration industry. So not so much towards mining, but really on the exploration part. But of course, our customers are then both mining companies and private and listed juniors. We try to provide like the full range of within exploration, focusing on the geology, but starting from the permitting, the landowner stakeholder engagement, then we have got geos, both from junior to like experienced people within nickel and VMS and base metals and gold, precious metals and so on. Then we also have the like field and core shed technicians. And once the field work has been done, so to say, we also have people then on the database side, modeling and visualization, resource estimation, project evaluation. So kind of a whole project execution package we got with the team. Over the years, we've been taking part in different research projects as well, and both in-house and with authorities and so on. So yeah, 40 people in total, about 30 geos. So quite a large network, and combined experience that collectively gains quite a lot of knowledge what's going on and what's happening that we can use then in our services for other customers as well. So
that's excellent. So the plan is to go through each of the Nordic nations, but I thought we'd start the conversation off generally speaking. If you want to give us sort of an overview of your experience, and how you see the Nordic nations as themselves, generally speaking.
Yeah, well, the Nordics, so when I say Nordics, I mean, in this case, maybe focusing mainly on Finland, Sweden, and Norway. It's politically stable and, democracy is in place in a way, and which when it comes to exploration, maybe sometimes make the process a bit slower, but also gives you a certainty that you cannot lose the permit from one day to another, assuming that you're not misbehaving, so to say. And generally, the education level is high. In geology education is quite common to do a master's, which is then 5 years. Both Finland, Sweden, and Norway are NATO members. So actually, today is the anniversary for the foundation of NATO, and it's also today exactly when 2 years ago when Finland joined NATO. Comparing to North Canada, or somehow we got the heat from the Gulf Stream, so it's not as cold as up in northernmost Canada. Winter conditions, I would say, is November to May, when it comes to exploration. This year winter has been really mild, so I expect the drilling programs that has been going on over this winter will probably terminate a bit earlier because the swamps are melting up and so on, which then means having a mild winter, it will be more sooner we will have access to the ground conditions in early May, which maybe in northern Finland is normally June. So within Europe, we also have in the Nordics the only indigenous people, which is the Sami people. So they are also both in Finland, Sweden, and Norway. And I'm not sure how much I was looking at and thinking about it and comparing, for example, Finland, Sweden, and Norway as a region in one region. It is about in size-wise more or less as the province of Ontario when it comes to size. Population about 1.5 times more population than in Ontario. But we also have a road network. It's about 3 times more road network in Finland, Sweden, and Norway compared to Ontario. And same thing with rail network. It's about 3 times more kilometers of rail network. I'm not meaning anything bad about Ontario about this, but just to give a comparison between so that people understands a bit what we're talking about when we're talking about the Nordics.
It's a great point, because I think that's something that gets lost on people, because especially North American investors, even though, people can be so centrist or centric in their viewpoint of Canada and the States maybe being the best. But it's definitely a misnomer, especially with Europe in general, with rail and road access. Everything is so close and accessible, which is a big deal, a really big deal.
It is, and yes, the salary levels are quite high, and services are quite expensive and so on in the Nordics. But also, when it comes to mineral exploration, you don't have maybe those same mobilization costs as in other parts of the world because the road network and this. So there's both things that are cheaper, but there's also things that are more expensive.
That's right. Also, can I ask you, is a mistake I made, the misnomer that Finland is a part of Scandinavia? What is Scandinavia then? Because I think most people have that misconception.
Yeah. No, the Scandinavia comes from the Scandinavian languages. So it's Sweden, Danish, Norwegian, and so on. And the Finnish language doesn't come from that. And the Nordic is more of a geographical aspect, and quite often Denmark and Iceland and Greenland is also part of the Nordics. So I would say it's a geographical versus a language aspect to it.
Well, that's a good point. Let's move into more specifics to Norway. I think Norway is one of those countries that's definitely been at the forefront the last couple of years with this kind of green revolution. Norway's always brought up in conversation as kind of being that leading country towards green initiatives and the impact of their sovereign wealth fund sort of propping up or being put into these green initiatives or green companies. With that, I think the flip side is that the perception is that maybe Norway isn't as open to mining and mineral exploration. I wonder if that's a misconception. Can you start there?
Norway has a long history of mining. For example, in the Røros district, there's been a lot of mining, and I think when was it 50 plus years when they discovered the oil and so on, the focus on a country level, and this affects then both politicians and authorities, education and so on, has been more focused towards oil and gas and that kind of industry, and mineral exploration has fallen a bit behind. However, there's a strong industrial minerals production in Norway. So it is a bit like Finland had back in the days. Before Finland joined the EU, exploration and mining was only allowed by Finnish entities. After joining in the EU in 1995, it became open for foreign investments, and then things start to pick up. So I think that is basically what is happening now, because Norway is not part of the EU, but we have the Critical Raw Materials Act and these strategic minerals coming within EU, But we also have in Norway, 2023, they had a strategic proposal coming up. There's a new mining act coming in. So I would say that 5-10 years ago, yes, we had a green transition kind of thinking in the exploration, a lot of focus on batteries and mobile phones and those kind of metals. And then we had the COVID and that hit, also affecting us how are we reliant on different things and so on, and dependent on each other. Then we had the Russian aggression on invasion on Ukraine, and the sanctions that came around that has also, on a general level, affected people and the society, that we are aware of how dependent we have been on other countries before. And now, during the last months, and especially maybe this couple of few days, we've seen the tariffs and so on. So now it's not only to the overseas, but also now like to the West. And I think the whole society, both on a political level and all kinds of level, we are more aware of that. Hey, we need to be independent. We need to be more self-sufficient. And luckily, we have the bedrock to provide with world-class gold deposit, base metals, and battery metals, and rare earth projects. So I think there's a movement in that direction, that people are becoming more aware that we need more metals, and we have them. So why not use them? But I mean, of course, we have in all parts of Norway and Finland, Sweden, there is areas. And this is quite interesting because you have the historical mining exploration areas, but now with the green transition and new metals, we are maybe moving into new areas, and that means dialogue when it comes to exploration is different. That you cannot use the same wording, you cannot use the same kind of discussions when you're moving into a new ground where the local and the society never heard about exploration, never seen a drill rig. So you need to have a different type of dialogue with the land and stakeholders, and that also maybe has raised like NIMBY and NIMLY and banana and so on. But there are also regions now where we have the YIMBY, where's the Yes in My Backyard, where the local society start to see the positive aspects when it comes to exploration and mining, and wants the companies to keep going and further. So I think there's been a change in that direction quite a lot.
And so, like that, talking about those conversations with the stakeholders, the landowners, is that generally going well then? Like your perception is that, people are generally want to see mineral exploration going on, like that it's accepted?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that, and it's quite interesting because it's people don't know what exploration is. They have maybe an idea of mining, but they don't maybe have the today's technology level of what mining is all about. But I think also what we could present better and talk better is that I had one of our geos where she was from this area where the exploration was going on, and there was an open event about to be arranged, and translating presentations into local language, which is quite a important one, because everyone, especially the elderly, doesn't always know English that well. And getting the corporation material, it was about we need the battery metals and so on for the electrical vehicles and so on. And being from that area, funny enough, where Finland, Norway has a lot of electronic vehicles, since despite they have the oil, Sweden has more and Finland has the least of them. And in this part of Finland, no one liked electrical vehicles. Everyone wants petrol and fuel. So that's maybe not the corporate presentation that you should go into an open meeting to why we should have exploration and mining in your hoods or in your neighborhood, because we need metals to the batteries and to the vehicles, and no one likes them. So it's quite an interesting aspect to that.
What about Norway from an infrastructure / geological potential? Like, I think, looking at the maps where I see, some of the, or most of the exploration work happening, let's say in Finland, it's in the northern part of the country. So going to Norway, does Norway have that sort of access and infrastructure that allows companies to do the exploration at a reasonable cost?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, the challenges or the situation, it's not maybe a challenge, it's just the fact that Norway, it's more topographical, more mountainous terrain, which is then more challenging maybe when it comes to logistics. On the other hand, you have more outcropping compared to Finland and Sweden, for example. But whereas in Finland and Sweden, there's more overburden and that kind of aspect. So, but I would say, that there is, road network and that is not more challenging. It's more the topographical aspect into it, but it's also a benefit in one way.
Right. That's interesting. What about? I hear a lot about reindeer. Is reindeer an issue in Norway?
Yes and no, and I think to say. It's not, you can't answer that on a country level, neither for Finland, Sweden, or Norway, but it really varies on the area. And the reindeer herding is there's winter herding in in the winter time they come maybe down in altitude, so to say, and during the summertime they go up in the mountains, and this varies from location to location, and it's in some cases it is possible to be there in collaboration, but it requires a dialogue, and the Norwegian Mining Act that they are about to update has this in one of the aims that they want to make a more strengthen the protection of Sami rights, and basically it's just to make sure that the aim is to better take Sami interest into account in mineral exploration activities. But on the other hand, there is also the strengthened like the integration of national security aspects in it, and they want to simplify the permitting for exploration, not making it maybe easier, but making it simpler, the actual process, and more like efficient coordination of permitting processes, that there's not so many different overlapping institutes to get not only the exploration permit but also the working plans and so on. So, and one other really interesting aspect is they are also thinking about the qualification requirements for mineral exploration actors, so that there's a necessary qualification to carry out the work responsibly. So anyone cannot just put in exploration grant, but you need to also have that track record or people behind the company show that they are able to do the work.
Right. What about the number of juniors? Having a presence there in Norway now, I'm assuming that might be the newest part of GeoPool's business. Have you seen the number of juniors that are working in that area spike? At PDAC this year was the first time I'd ever talked to a junior that's doing exploration work, which I found quite interesting. So what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I think we're starting on the Finnish side, because in Finland there's about, if you talk about like the permit holders, there's about 50-ish permit holders in Sweden, and they have about 3,000 square kilometers of exploration permits. Then we have the reservation, but it's about 10,000 in total. Let's put it reservation and exploration. Whereas in Norway, there is actually a bit more permit holders, but this is now then also including small companies, big companies, and so on. But there's actually more companies to date in Norway than in Finland. But and also the ground they covered is about 20,000 square kilometers, and Sweden is double the amount of explorers than in Finland. And they also have about 20,000 square kilometers. So in Norway, there hasn't been that much activities over the last, like 2015, but now since 2022, it has really boomed a lot with the number of permits in Norway. So there's a lot of increase. Not maybe so many companies yet, but there's couple of companies who've been like the first movers entering into Norway, and I think it is really interesting because there's a lot of momentum on NGO level, on the political level, on the new mining act and so on, and they want to make this happen. So I think they are as on a country level, Norway is maybe not turning away from oil, but starting to look at other alternatives also for the long-term future, and that's when the mineral industry comes in.
How would you rank the geological potential of Norway, maybe in comparison to Finland and Sweden?
I mean, it's good. It is a bit of a colorized. It's a different type of geology, so it's a bit like Newfoundland and in the eastern part of Canada, same mountain range. So it is different from the Precambrian rock and in Finland and Sweden. But I mean, it hosts iron ore deposits. There's a lot of VMS deposits. There's rare earths. It is a lot of mineralization in the ground there. But as I said, also the exploration history, if all of Nordics is considered to be underexplored, Norway is even more underexplored. So there's a lot of work to do there. Yeah. But I think the potential is there, and then it's having the sea access on the whole west coast of Norway. There is a good potential for Norway in that also, that you don't have to maybe have the longest transportations, but the harbors are quite close, or possibilities to harbors is close.
What about secondary refinement? Is there, I know Sweden definitely has some secondary refinement facilities. Does Norway have any?
Yeah, they do. There's a couple of them. Bolin has one in Norway, and there's also in southern Norway there is. So there is refineries in Norway. Both.
That's good, because I think that's one thing about Canada. I would say that is a big misnomer about this energy transition is that Canadian politics has been pushing the green transition, and a lot of the news flow is centered around actual mining, but when it comes down to the other part of the story, moving upstream of the mining process, there's nothing. People don't. They want the ore, they want the metal, but they have no way to transition that ore or concentrate into an end product, which is a big issue. Okay.
So there's two big melters in Norway. These maybe the Boliden, the Norda, and the Hydro in Karmøy, and there's three in Sweden and also 3 in Finland. So there is that, and in commercial harbors there's maybe six major ones, ports in the major cities whereas maybe Narvik is the most because of the LKAB and the iron production going up to from Kaunis Iron and LKAB up to Narvik. But I mean, there's also ports in Sweden and Finland, but there we have the Gulf of Bothnia, and the average depth there is 50 plus meters something, and so the advantage for Norway is actually have deep sea potential in there, can transport bigger volumes.
And what about politics? Like you did mention, we were talking about the Nordic nations as a whole, that it's a politically stable region. But is there much variation between the 3 Nordic nations in terms of their politics? Like, is it that much difference between Norway, Sweden, and Finland?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, the political cycles is different from the exploration and mining cycle. So I mean, what is now and what it will be in the future, or what it has been over the years, it's more or less the same. I would say that the same things that has happened in Finland and Sweden or Norway has occurred in all 3 countries. Maybe not always to the same extent, but it's the same kind of movement, either left or right.
Okay. Why don't we start talking more about Sweden? Sweden's is a pretty interesting country from a number of standpoints. I think the biggest one that most mining investors might have caught a whiff of is this uranium ban and the removal of the uranium ban, and whether that's happening. This certainly, when the uranium boom was happening, I guess about a year, 2 years ago, it was a hot topic, and there's a couple companies I know that were kind of right in the middle of that. So what is the gist of the uranium ban? Is that gone? Is uranium open in Sweden?
Yeah, so it is a hot topic in Sweden, and backtrack in when talking about the green transition and whatever discussions 5-10 years ago. So in Sweden, the uranium was taken out from the minerals right. So basically, forbidden, making exploration for uranium forbidden. There was a proposal in December 2024 by the government, or an inquiry, where they recommended removing the ban on uranium, and that is now being then processed, and there's hearing process and so on going on. But yeah, the idea is to have it removed, and that would not only be for the exploration part, but also for the extraction of uranium from the bedrock. What is still, however, a challenge, is that processing ore with uranium becomes a nuclear operation, and that then it's outside the Mining Act. And there is then a question that will the municipality have a veto because it's a nuclear operation then to processing. So I don't know what will happen, but there's some parties that are still really positive to this and want to have it action and want to build more nuclear power plants in Sweden in addition to I think it's 6 now, so that 6 units that are now in operation. So we'll see. Yeah, too early to tell, but I mean, there is some momentum in that, and we'll see where it ends.
Interesting. You mentioned that the difference with Finland and Sweden is that they had more overburden, and I'm guessing just from what I've experienced through the companies I'm invested in, this is till cover, and so. How are companies exploring for minerals in Sweden and Finland? Maybe talk about them combined and what that general process of finding stuff is.
There's maybe, I don't know if you wanted to call it 2 different schools, but we can do that. One school is to come in, you do the geophysical version of it, and you do the geophysical airborne drone ground surveys, and then you move over to bedrock drilling or so on. The other school, if you call it like that, is to start, with a soil sampling, shovel or something like that. You take small soil samples covering large areas, and then when you hit the anomalies, you try to follow that upstream in the ice direction, and also then by moving down over to base of till, and once you are at the base of till, so you have the till layer and you have the base of till, so that's the what is just above the bedrock surface, and that should then be an indication that you're closer to the host from the bedrock, and then you move over to feeding or trenching, or if it's wetland or really thick overburden, you need to do diamond drilling directly.
Right. Which school do you, or in your experience, which of the 2 schools have produced the best results?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, let's put it this way: that the second school has probably produced more geochemical anomalies, and the first school has probably produced more geophysical anomalies. So, which I will leave it like that. But you can also see, actually, Australians are more keen on maybe on geophysics, whereas Canadians are more keen on geochemistry, or not keen, but coming from that part of school. So, and the Finns are maybe also more on geochemical side, but it varies, of course. This is just the big picture, so to say.
Right. And that's across the spectrum. That's whether we're talking about gold or critical minerals. This is the best way to identify these types of.
Yeah, I would say especially for the base metals and you go gold. Well, gold is tricky. Pure like free floating gold is a bit tricky with geophysics if you don't have the sulfides or stuff like that. But the base metal stuff is also quite a lot of geophysical driven in a way. But it also when it comes to lithium exploration, for example, there is not much geophysical methods that works. But there is development happening all the time. But it varies a bit also with this heavy rare earth metals and so on. What is the host? I think that's more of interest sometimes, that how to use the host rock in comparison to the mineralization there.
Right. In terms of juniors exploring, do you think there's any sort of niche aspect of a junior that's exploring in the Nordics? Is there anything that they should be doing, or investors can look at them to be doing, that is integral for operation in the Nordic nations?
Well, yeah, I would say that there's two, comparing Finland and Sweden, for example. So having an exploration permit in Sweden doesn't cost that much for the actual permit, but and it's quite quick to get. It takes a couple of months, and you have the license approved, assuming that all boxes are ticked. But the exploration permit in Sweden doesn't give you any exploration rights. The only right basically gives is that no other exploration or mining company can overlap that geographical area from. So when you then got the ground, then you are obligated to start communicating with the landowners and stakeholders and get the work plan approved. And for example, off-road permit goes from another authority. So I think that's maybe what just having the ground is not good enough, so to say. You need to maybe dig a bit more, asking questions about what is actually happening. How are you doing with the landowners? And I'm not saying that a lot of landowners has to be a negative aspect. Yeah, it will require a bit more work because you need to send letters or communicate with all these landowners. But it might be also that if you only have one or two landowners and both say they don't want exploration or mining, and they don't approve the work plans, then it's the same problem. So the amount is not always a challenge, but it's more about where you are and what kind of talking about having the historical exploration and mining in this area. So are you in an area where the landowners know what it's all about? Then it might be a different scenario comparing to if you're entering new ground and new areas where they don't know about exploration and mining. And so I think that part is maybe of interest, to see what are the companies actually, how are they engaging with the locals in Sweden, because that they need the locals' approval to conduct the exploration work. So that's maybe one small. And when it comes to terrain aspect, I would say maybe both this covers also for Finland and Sweden and Norway, that should have one flagship project, or should you have two in different regions in a way, so that if you get stumble on something in a negative aspect that delays the project development in one area, you can still be active on the other one or the third one. So you create a continuous workflow. That a single project is quite a single project company might be a bit in risk, because I would say that maybe not all. So I'm not sure actually who is the driver for this, but sometimes it's always the furthest developed project that raises the most interest, that gets the most attention and money. But that also maybe it's the bias aspect, both from the operating company and from the investors and from the geos, that maybe actually the other project that hasn't been developed that far, maybe actually is could be even more potential but the interest is so much fun. More fun to just continue develop something that has already been taken a step ahead. So that's maybe also something that could be really interesting to challenge the company, or not challenge, but maybe discuss the company. Well, what about these other targets? When are you going to do something there? What is the geological potential if you put them down on the same level in a way?
Generally speaking, would you say that Finland sort of separates itself from Sweden and Norway in terms of, the stakeholders or landowners' acceptance of mining and mineral exploration? Like that seems to be my perception, is it that way? But what do you think?
No, you're right in one way, and the Finnish setup is a bit different. So we have the reservations where you only don't have the exploration rights. Both Finland, Sweden, and Norway have the everyman's right. So you can go out, pick berries, mushroom, or just hiking, and that also comes then to geological mapping. So you don't need a permit for that. But when you start to take samples and so on, you're moving into this permit part, and the exploration license structure in Finland is a bit different. And when you apply for an exploration permit in Finland, you are obligated to make a plan for the upcoming 4 years. And if you apply then for soil sampling and geophysics and so on, but don't include drilling, you get approval for what you apply for. And the landowners, the fee that is quite, much more higher in Finland, but that fee goes to the landowner. So regardless if the companies are active or not, the landowner actually get compensated for the exploration permit. And yeah, it is maybe challenging. It's more costly, but it also opens up a different type of dialogue between the exploration company and the landowner's stakeholders. When you need to reach out that, hey, we need to ask for your bank account details so we can transfer the compensation that you legally have the right to get. There is also, it opens up then a possibility to have a discussion, to have the dialogue, to present the company in a different way, that who is behind the company, what are the plans, when are you going to be active. So I think there is definitely a different way of operating in Finland compared to Sweden. And well, I'm Finn, but so I'm maybe a bit biased, but I kind of like the Finnish way of the structure. And also, for example, the exploration license in Finland, once you have it, you have the off-road permit is included in the permit, so you don't need to go to a lot of separate authorities to get the more permissions, but you actually have it all in one. This is now then assuming that there, in normal conditions. I'm not talking about Natura 2000 or other protected aspects, but in general.
Okay. So growing up, you chose to go into geology. How common is the aspiration of being a geologist in Finland, or maybe if you can talk across the Nordics, but talk about your own experience. Like, how did you come to want to be a geologist?
Well, that's a long story. That's no, but I started off in the gymnasium. Actually, it wasn't about mineral and mining back then, but it was about volcanology and seismology, and that was raised my interest. And then that took me to the university, and then at the university, this mineral exploration, that I wasn't aware of from before, came to my interest. And when it comes to exploration and mining education in Finland, Sweden, and Norway, as we discussed earlier, the Norwegian side has been moving more focused on the oil and gas. So there's brilliant geos in Norway for sure. The experience or the amount of geos having the experience with the mineral exploration as in Sweden is not that much. In Norway, Sweden has also, a couple of universities where there is good geos coming out. The volume is also smaller than in Finland. So since Finland has had the Outokumpu and this kind of historical mining companies that has been, generating and the exploration and geological understanding has been maintained. So there's now, 4 universities in Finland having, teaching geology. So a different, not everyone is not maybe focusing on mineral. There's also sedimentology and other aspects that they focus on, which is fine. But I would say that there's more geos coming out of Finland than from Sweden and from Norway.
Right. In our conversation offline, you were talking about an interview you saw me, Bill and I talking, and there's a question regarding CEOs and those that come from corporate backgrounds. And, I want to give you the chance to talk about that and what your opinion is on CEOs that come from big corporations.
Yeah, no, it was really interesting to listen to, and I almost forgot about it myself, but it was while I was doing my executive MBA, and I was explaining to my student mates, and further on, I also told this story to our geos that basically, I mean, it's a fiction story to describe the situation, but assuming you're a geo coming out of the university, which is outside the Nordics, Canada, Australia, wherever. But somewhere else, and you get a first job at a mining company. You work there for a couple of years. You get promoted over the years, and get more and more responsible. But after 5, 10, 15 years, you get maybe a bit bored of it, and you want to try your wings with something else. And we start to look around, and you maybe see a position for an exploration company, a VPX or something like that, that could be interesting. And you look around where they have the ground, and you find out they are actually active in the Nordics. So that could be fun. Get some work abroad in the Nordics. And you realize that the geology is, it's the same. And so, I know what will be working with, and that's fine. So you maybe get up the site and, get even more convinced you accept the job, and, happy moving forward. And the experience that the person has gained at the mining company, I mean, it's valuable. It's really valuable. But it might also be that now being a VPX or a CEO, you got more other type of things to do, that you're maybe are becoming. It's not another department that is maybe dealing with the permitting work. It's not maybe a different department that is dealing with the stakeholder engagement work. You are maybe need to do your budgeting, and your totally different currency, totally different areas where the costs are totally different. In addition to that, which then, having the person, it depends quite a lot of the person as well, but, you need to adapt to maybe the local culture, the local language, local conditions for exploration and mining and so on. So I found that part, that's maybe the part that I see quite interesting, that, when looking at companies and their history, that have they been active in several different foreign areas before, that maybe also is an indication for that they are actually also, able to deal with the local aspects, regardless if it's people or just handling the whole process. So they are more, that's was basically the what I reflected about.
Well, that's a great point. That's a great point that I think gets lost on people, that the lack of experience in some of these various jurisdictions can be a problem, even when it seems like it's the same, as you kind of were alluding to there. There's nuances and
there are nuances, yeah. And then, there's winter conditions, summer conditions, when what methodologies work, when can you do what, and you don't have that experience, from some before. It depends so much on the person. If you're open, some people embrace it and love it and want to learn, but some people just assume that you can do it, as I always have done it, and that doesn't maybe work on a global level.
Right. This has been a great conversation. I really do think we've just scratched the surface on the potential and sort of the whole topic of investing in the Nordic nations in terms of mineral exploration. But I think one of the biggest points I would want to leave investors with, and this is a personal opinion, is that while we've just scratched the surface on the topic, really I think the mining industry has only scratched the surface in terms of the exploration that's been done, and the world class discoveries that have already been made, in particular in Finland, I think just show the absolute potential of this great part of the world.
Yeah, and I think we only started in a way, because looking at the investments made in Finland, for example, when it comes to exploration in 2015. So let's say about 10 years ago, it was about 30 million euros, 30, and now in 2024, it was 3 times more, about 90 million euros. So, it has been increasing from year to year to year, and there's more and more movement into exploration and mining. So I think, Sweden doesn't unfortunately have the same numbers, so I can't share that, but nor does Norway. But I think there is a movement for the Nordics for sure.
Absolutely, there is. Great conversation. How about you tell us about, encompass what GeoPool can offer companies that are looking to step into the Nordic nations, and how can interested viewers contact you?
Yeah, well, I think a successful project, and it needs basically 3 different standpoints. You need the geology, you need the property, and that's one leg, and you need the people and the management, and you need the processes, and these needs to be in balance, because if you don't have the geology, there will be moderate results because you have the management and the process in place, but you don't have the right place, and there's a lot of pros and cons with this kind. So I think that's where our slogan is discovering together, and that's where we try to help where do find solutions together with the company, and to feed in our people with the complete the package. So you get a good project team for the project, and our maybe best thing is the local aspect, and then we have the full range of services, and we know the local languages and culture. So website is geopool.fi, and we are on LinkedIn and so on. So that's maybe the best, easiest way to find us.
Excellent. Okay, well, we'll have that link in the description below. Mathias, thank you so much for coming on the show. Hopefully we can do this chat again soon.
Yeah, no, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. And I'm always happy to discuss and talk about the Nordics. And we are local, and, miners and juniors and companies can walk away, but, we stay put, and we will be here. We are not walking away from the projects, or, that is also, quite interesting aspect to this, that for us as a long-term value, we want the company to be successful to do exploration, which means not only on geological, but also getting the permits in place and getting the social work done so that they conduct the drilling. So it is, that's really the focus where we are, that we want to make exploration possible.
Excellent.